2009 and seemed to not have expressed that, but underneath the surface was growing more and more and more bitter until he cracked 4 years later. It was so unpredictable because so much time elapsed. That's not to say he didn't have these tendencies before. In his manifesto itself, he says, from the very beginning, even in first grade, he felt a lot of bitterness towards other people, and during his time at the LAPD, he had urges to aggressive against other officers. So it was something that was always there, but not something you could really expect.
Did anybody give you any information to support the outrage that the suspect put forward about how he was right in this situation, how he was wrongfully fired? Were you able to find anything to support that? Because we had somebody review the case file for us, and it was fairly clear from the documentation of the hearing that his claims seemed to be without merit. But have you learned anything else that might support his outrage?
I think it was with merit.
The father of the man who was the center of that original case in 2007, where Dorner alleged that his training officer hit or kicked that man, that man's father did tell a TV station, a local TV station here, that his son did in fact report that he had been hit or been kicked, was in line with what Dorner had said. Now, the LAPD didn't find that in the investigation, so there are two different accounts there, and it's hard to say which is true. The LAPD did reopen the investigation 2 days ago.
Jens, that father had been the review board, which ultimately got rid of Dorner from the police department. They were aware of the father's testimony. They just viewed it as hearsay, correct?
Yes, that's what it concluded. The father did say on the air this week that he did hear his son say that. I was not able to get in touch with the father directly, so I can't comment further on that.
I know also, according to this review board, they felt that the man who alleged that he had been kicked by the female officer, which Dorner was partnered with, and Dorner also said this female officer kicked this person, was, I believe, schizophrenic and therefore viewed as an unreliable witness. And it really ended up becoming kind of a he said, she said between Chris Dorner and his partner. But again, authorities say they're going to look more into it. Jens, I appreciate you talking with us. Jens, you're a full-time reporter in Los Angeles who's been looking into the past of Chris Dorner, as frankly so many of us have over the last several days, as we've been trying to understand what is going through this man's mind, not just prior to this most recent incident, but over the last several days. Any clues that might help authorities try to figure out what his next move may be? Because
he's really been. See, the roads are open.
I mean, they've been in a reactive mode over the last several days.
I think that's exactly right, Anderson. I mean, there seem to be two big reasons to look at this. One is we want to try to understand if this man was having mental health issues, if he was in pain, was there a point at which this could have been stopped? He could have been treated and wasn't, just to learn for other situations. And then, of course, there's also a lot of feeling about how this particular police department deals with citizens, deals with its own.
Yeah, they
and this story played into a lot of those fears, a lot of that anger. So it requires a real depth of skepticism, not to glorify an individual who decides to kill in the name of any cause, but because of that existing environment, it requires more curiosity.
And what you're looking at is a watch out there, Big Bear, California, where for the last several hours, all eyes really around the world have been trained trying to figure out exactly what is happening inside that cabin that we've been showing you. Traffic now moving well. It looks like some of those roadblocks have been lifted, the roadblocks that we've been watching cars being searched for the last several hours. But let's just give you a sense of some of what we have heard over these last several hours. As you know, if you've been watching this coverage, all of this began hours ago when there was a report of a carjacking, a stolen vehicle, a white pickup truck that was stolen and then intercepted near a roadblock where a shooting took place. Christopher Dorner, the suspect, was then said to have entered a nearby cabin, and that cabin is the cabin we've been showing you, where authorities have now surrounded and are trying to basically assess what the situation may be inside, whether or not there's any hostages inside. We've just heard recently some sound from a friend of the person who
wants
had
to
their
watch
vehicle
the
taken. Let's hear what
State of the Union coverage, not me.
He said he was in full camos, armed, pointed a gun at him, and asked him to get out. He didn't want to harm him, then took his truck.
So obviously, Tom, this person was on foot. He didn't see him get out of another vehicle and approach his car.
His comment was he jumped out of the woods.
Jumped out of the woods.
And so, I mean, in a violent situation like that, it's you know, your mind plays funny tricks on you, obviously. He saw clearly one gun pointed right at him. Did he happen to notice if this person wearing the camis had any other weapons on him?
He didn't say. I didn't ask. I was just happy that he was okay and that he and his dog were safe, and he was a little wired up, actually, a little
bad.
incident.
And what we don't know is, according to the LA Times, for the last several days, Christopher Dorner has been in a cabin holding a couple hostage, basically kind of laying low, and that's why we haven't heard much from him over the last, and why authorities haven't heard much from him over the last several days. It's not clear how he got from that cabin that he allegedly was holding hostage in to carjacking this vehicle, according to the person. This person saying that he came out of the woods. It's not clear exactly the layout of the cabin where he supposedly was staying.
Tom Fuentes, former assistant director of the FBI, is giving us information that there is a tactical operation ongoing right now. So there's information to come. Hopefully everybody will be safe at the end of it. We'll let you know when we know. But to go back to what we heard from the gentleman about the carjacking, it again is another insight into who we're dealing with here as a suspect, in as much as he's killing police officers but didn't want to wound the person in the car.
We're told tear gas has now been fired into the cabin. There is a tactical operation underway
targeting
right
cops,
now.
not just
We just got that
random
word from Tom
people.
Fuentes. Again, you're not looking at live pictures because of the security situation on the ground. Authorities have asked helicopters to not fly over this area, but what we are hearing is that a tactical operation now is underway. Tear gas has been fired. We had talked to Tom Fuentes from the FBI earlier, who's giving us some of this information, formerly of the FBI, I should say. His key point was that if there were hostages inside, it would be a very different reaction and a very different timetable. Tom Fuentes is joining us now on the phone. Tom, what are you hearing?
Well, I just heard from from some law enforcement contacts that the operation had been initiated, launching tear gas at the cabin. From my past experience, it would be unlikely that they would initiate a tactical operation if they thought there were hostages in there. So somehow they had probably determined that there were probably no hostages in there and decided to seek it this way.
How does this play out? I mean, given other situations you have monitored, you've been involved with, or you've been aware of, tear gas is fired. It's not known whether he may have gas mask or not, is it? So I guess there's still a certain level of kind of wait and see.
Yeah, and I think the hope here is that he would not have all of the equipment that he might normally have had he set up a location to defend. If he happened to just run in there and come across his cabin, we don't know that for sure. But
ammunition
if it just happened to be a cabin that he was able to enter, and he's on foot running, that he may not have all of the equipment that he would possibly want to have for a long-term siege, including night vision equipment and warm weather clothing, gas masks, more weaponry, firepower. He may not have that, so he may be extra vulnerable that way. And again, if they determined and were reasonably certain that he was alone in that cabin, then it changes everything, and they could go ahead and launch this, especially try to resolve it before dark.
All right, Tom, please stay with us. Let us know if you get any new information. Let's bring in Commissioner Bill Bratton, who was the LAPD police chief. I'm assuming you heard that, Chief, that they're doing a tactical operation right now around the cabin. We believe they're using tear gas. Can you step us through what happens in a situation like this?
Well, normally in these situations that they're in a position where they can wait out an individual. But if I understand it based on news reports, he has been firing somewhat continuously at the officers.
Chief, give me 1 second here. We're just getting new information that a SWAT team has entered the cabin.
Oh my gosh.
This is obviously a small space now. A confrontation is almost required.
Oh my gosh.
So right now inside that cabin,
I
a
hope
lot
they
of
don't
activity,
shoot him.
obviously, Chief, right?
Okay,
I wish we had live
what they probably
footage.
attempted to do is while they still have daylight on their side.
Let me see if any of the other
And,
networks
again, while he was
have
continuing to
live
fire at him, he was
footage.
endangering the officers.
And
So,
Chief, let me just stop you one more second again.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
gosh.
We have a new live picture. That smoke is coming from the cabin where we believe the suspect